Hi fam, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Intentional Favor, and on this channel I film videos on faith, lifestyle, studying abroad, living abroad, social work, and so many good stuffs in between. So please consider joining this family by clicking on the subscribe button. And to you all my amazing subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos. So far, in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys a real life story that happened in London, United Kingdom, while we discuss the concept of physical chastisement, and I'll be coming from the point of view of a social worker. So this story I'm about to share is actually published by Premium Times, and it was published in May of this year, 2023, and they titled it London Court Jails Nigerian 3 years for Flogging Son. Yeah, flogging son. If you're in Nigeria, you know that we normally refer to physical chastisement as flogging. So this Nigerian man was actually sentenced to jail for physically chastising his son. I'm just going to read some important parts of this while we discuss, and of course, feel free to use the comment section to leave any question you might have regarding this topic. An appeal court in London, the United Kingdom, has sentenced a Nigerian man to 3 years in jail for physically abusing his 9-year-old son. I'm not really surprised that this man is a Nigerian because flogging, physical chastisement, is quite common in Nigeria. It's actually a major form of discipline in Nigeria and most African countries. But the truth is that when you migrate as an immigrant, when you go to a new place, it's best for you to know what works there and of course try and adhere to that. Let me just quickly say this. As you may know, the United Kingdom is made up of 4 countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Now, specifically in Scotland, physical chastisement is unacceptable. Like, it's a no-no. It's an offense to physically chastise a child. Then in England, it's not really an offense, sort of, for you to physically chastise a child, maybe, smacking a child or hitting a child or anything. Okay, there is no law specifically ruling that as a crime. But in Scotland, you are not allowed to smack a child or physically chastise a child. However, the same England that we are talking about, of course, London is in England where this happened. It can be considered criminal. It can be considered a crime if any form of chastisement or beating or flogging on any child results in marks or redness. Yes. So if there are marks, if there are redness on the body of a child after you have physically chastised the child, flogged the child, or done anything, it could be considered criminal. And I think you really need to note that. And that's why many times it's discouraged. Forget about it. Yes, in Scotland, it's not allowed, okay? The law is against it. In England, the law is not against it, but look at this. If there is actually redness or anything, it will be considered criminal, and that is why you should avoid any form of physical chastisement, because sometimes you never can tell what will happen. Sometimes you never can tell how your emotions will get hold of you, and you might do things that you will regret. Let's go back to the story. The offender, who is 66 years old, initially got away with 22 months imprisonment at the end of his trial at the Crown Court in Woolwich, Southeast London, which the government disagreed with. So, of course, I won't read everything in this story, but of course, he was tried, okay, and he was sentenced to prison, 22 months imprisonment, all right? But later on, the government disagreed, okay? They felt that that is not enough punishment. The punishment is not commensurate with what the offense that he committed, and then it was appealed, and of course, a higher sentence was given to him, which we will find out about later. How it happened. So let's hear how this actually happened. How did they get to that point of going to court and of course sentencing this man? The offender was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and moved to the United Kingdom in 1990. For me, when I read this story, this was a surprising part for me. He has been in this country for way over 30 years, okay? And Yet he did this. You would think that the longer one stays here, and of course, considering his age, he is 66 years old, you will expect some level of, should I say, maturity, or at least you've been here for over 30 years, you should know how the country runs. But I was so disappointed when I read how old he is and how long he has been in the United Kingdom. Okay, now at the time of this offense, he lived in London with his wife, his stepdaughter, who is aged 17, and his two biological children, the victim and his sister. Okay, his wife also had two adult sons who did not live with them. Okay, if you're a Nigerian or if you're following this story, you can put one and two together to know what sort of marriage, like when he got married and all of that. At least his wife has adult children already, whereas he has a 9-year-old son. Okay, so you can put one and two together to understand the setting of this marriage, and you will know why I said put one and two together, so that you will understand where this story is actually headed. His wife, the victim's mother, during the lockdown, when school children had migrated to online classes, was informed that the victim had not been attending his online school classes for 2 days. As a result, she barred him from playing computer games and told the father about the development. Many people ask, if we cannot flog kids, if we cannot physically chastise children, how then can we discipline children? This is actually one of the ways you can discipline your children, okay? You can actually, withdraw some of their favorite things from them. Kids these days, one thing they value is their phone and their computer games, okay? You can actually give them like a suspension, okay? For doing this, for the next couple of days, you are not going to play on your computer game. I'm going to confiscate your this. I'm going to take your phone away from you. That's enough punishment, believe me, with the way kids like video, like games, the way kids like their phone and so many things online. Believe me, that's enough punishment. Your child, okay, might not be a phone freak, might not be a game freak. You know your child better than I do, and you know what is of interest to your child. And mind you, this is not like a way of like maybe behind you trying to be wicked towards this child. You know what you want to achieve, okay? And sometimes I tell people the earlier the better. Yes, the earlier the better. But that's not what we are here to do. Probably in a separate video, I'm going to talk about other forms of punishment, and we can discuss all of that. Moving on this story, on 22nd January 2021, she left home, talking about the wife, okay? She left home to visit her eldest son, leaving the victim with his sisters. Their father came home from work to find the victim using the computer. According to the court documents, the father repeatedly struck him across the back using metal sticks or rods, which he retrieved from a basket next to the television in the living room. He also used his belt repeatedly to strike him on the back, arms, and shoulders. Let's pause. What sort of punishment is this? Like, I personally find it difficult to believe this, but of course there were evidence to the point that it could not be denied. But how can a father be so cruel to his son to the point of doing this? Hitting him with a rod, and of course using belt, just because he was playing with a computer game that he shouldn't be playing with. I'm not sure, probably this dad had a bad day. Maybe he had a very terrible day, and of course the son was just the victim of the circumstance. He just unleashed his anger, his frustration, and everything on this little boy, a 9-year-old boy suffering this. That's so cruel. Okay, moving on. The 9-year-old son cried very loudly. One of his sisters witnessed the assault, while the other, who was upstairs at the time, heard his cries. That must be very devastating for these kids. Witnessing and hearing that, because I can imagine how this boy will cry with such level of punishment or beating or flogging or whatever you want to call it. When the physical assault had come to an end, the offender told E that dad told the son here refers to E, okay, because his name cannot be used considering his age, cannot be revealed, to hold a metal stick above his head and face the garden. This is another punishment. You can imagine what it is. Hold a metal stick above his head, so his hand is up with a metal stick that I'm sure will be heavy, and told him to face the guardian. He remained in this stressed position for some 2 hours. This is cruelty. Highest order of faith. But like I said, I don't know what came over this dad, and it could be anybody. That's why you have to determine that you will never use any form of physical chastisement, because it can start from something little and it can go into something as big as this. 2 days later, the mother came home to find her son in pain. She saw the marks on his body. She confronted the offender, which is dad, who admitted what he had done at that stage, but did not accept that his actions were wrong. She took her child to the hospital, where he was found to have multiple horizontal bruises across his back and arms, linear in appearance and consistent with the use of a metal stick-like implement. He also had bruises on his shoulders and his head, as well as cuts to his hands. The metal sticks used by the offender were provided to the police. So I told you, because this sounded unbelievable, but there were evidences. Okay, evidence was everywhere. So they provided the metal stick as evidence to the police, and the father was arrested on 25th January 2021. At this stage, he said he felt very remorseful, but when he was interviewed, he denied assaulting the little boy, his son, or any of his children with a stick or belt, and denied putting him in a stressed position. So he denied everything. He completely denied everything, but evidence speaks, right? So instead of being remorseful or accepting his mistake, he blamed his wife. He said she had encouraged the kids to fabricate allegations against him because she was upset with him over citizenship and her family's entry into this country. Remember, I told you earlier, put 1 and 2 together. I won't say much about that. So this is the background, or this is actually the story behind this. This was what happened, okay? And of course, like we read earlier, you saw that he was actually sentenced to 22 months imprisonment. But then the government came up and said, no, this punishment does not measure up to the level of offense that he committed. So they opposed the judgment that was passed earlier, okay? And they said that although it acknowledged the judge correctly placed the offense in the right category of the relevant sentencing guideline, it insisted that a term significantly longer than 22 months imprisonment was merited. He pointed out the trial judge recognized that there was evidence during the trial of assault or general abusive behavior involving other children in the family, but did not count it as an aggravating factor against the offender. In short, the downward adjustment to 22 months, taking into account all aggravating and mitigating factors, was simply far too great. Mr. Lord had told the Court of Appeal in making a case for a longer sentence, it did not reflect the overall seriousness of this offense. So they said that the 22 months imprisonment does not even at all reflect the seriousness of the offense. And if you ask me, that was so cruel. Like, I can't even imagine a father doing this to his own child, even his biological child. It's really unbelievable. And at the end of the day, he was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment for this offense that he has committed. Now, I don't know what came to your mind or what was going through your mind while I read this story or while you listened to me. But the truth of the matter is that sometimes people think that you can do some things in secret and it will not be known in public. Yes, and that is why some people go ahead, they hit their kids. I understand that kids can be difficult sometimes. I know that kids sometimes they can be pushy. They can push you to the wall and make you do certain things that you don't want to do to them, okay? But one thing parents should be aware of is the fact that physical chastisement is a no-no. It's unacceptable, especially in this part of the world. Like I did say earlier, yes, it's not outrightly a crime in England. But depending on the level of the offense, the level of the physical chastisement, anything that has to do with a mark or redness on a child's body can be considered criminal. Okay, and of course, you don't want to know what kids go through when all this happen. For instance, you've heard cases of school saying that they saw a mark on a child, they saw this, they saw that, and then they call social services, right? Yeah, of course, that's them because safeguarding in this country, as it is said, is everyone's business, including you as a member of the public. So it's everyone's business. The same reason why neighbors call the police or call social services on people, because safeguarding is everyone's business. If you are aware of this already, it will kind of help to determine what you do. Okay, if you know that your neighbor can call you, if you know that this thing that you are doing in secret can actually come out in the open, either because your child went to school and a mark is seen on his body, or they are having an innocent discussion in class, and your child innocently says something that happened, and then the teacher becomes interested. Sometimes people think that teachers, okay, I'm not here to say that teachers don't do that. There might be some teachers that do that, but believe me, that's not what teachers do most of the times. Most of the times, kids reveal some things to teachers when they are having honest or open or innocent conversation. Kids are innocent, and many times this is one of the reasons why whatever they say will be considered more than what you, the adult, is saying, because kids are considered innocent. Again, I know that not all kids can be that innocent, but when you know this, it will also help you to know how you behave or some things that you do. Okay, so when a mark or anything is seen on a child, that is when they will alert social services. For one, I know that sometimes not necessarily do kids end up being removed from their parents' care just because of that. In some cases, of course, they do, not all cases. We can talk about this later on, probably in a live video. I'm going to allow you guys to ask your questions, or I'm going to put out a poll where you ask me any question you want to ask regarding this, and I will answer them in much details. Okay, but not all times do kids end up being removed. So sometimes people are more, my concern with African parents or parents generally, including British citizens, okay, my problem with them sometimes is that people focus more on removal. Their major fear is their kids being removed or taken away from their care, but they still don't consider what these children go through when social services become involved in their lives. For instance, when the child, a mark is seen on their body, one thing that happens is that they are taken for what is called child protection medical. Okay? And when they go there, doctors do this, they will strip your child, they will do body mapping, they will check. And sometimes some of these things can actually have some impact psychologically and emotionally on them, on their well-being. It can impact on them. Believe me, as a parent, you don't want your child to go through all of this. Many times, like I said, parents focus more on, they'll be removed from our care, they'll be removed from our care. But they don't even think about it. At the end of the day, your child wasn't removed from your care, but do you know what your child went through? All those processes, you know the trauma it might cause them, do you know what it does to them? Even going to school, like social services or social workers rather, going to school or coming to the house to see them, talk to them, ask them questions, do you know that you don't actually want to expose your kids to that? And that's why it's usually said that prevention is better than cure. So why not prevent this? Okay, why not try your best? Make up your mind. No matter what happens, I'll try my best not to hit this child, because you might be doing it and you have nothing has happened. One day, you never can tell what will be happening in school. You don't know what your child will be asked. You don't know what will happen. And then your child will say something that a certain professional will become interested in. Ask more questions and the child keeps exposing everything. And voila, social services are involved. Believe me, you don't want your child to experience that. It's not necessary that they do. That's why you need to be careful. So you can hear a story that happened in England where physical chastisement is actually not outrightly criminal or against the law as it is in Scotland, yet a man ended up in 3 years imprisonment simply because of physical chastisement. That should say so many things to you, and a word they say is enough for the wise. And I will be bringing this video to an end at this point. Please don't forget to give this video thumbs up, like this video, okay, so that YouTube can recommend it to many people. Also subscribe to the channel if you have not. Share this video with as many people, as many groups that you think might need it, and I will be seeing you in my next one. Until then, stay blessed, remain intentional, and take good care of yourselves. Bye.